A question I get asked almost every single day from people is, if we could just get a bunch of people together, maybe we could exert more influence on our area, where we live, so that we could make more freedom, so that we could take more freedom. Some people want to do it for, like political reasons. Some people want to do it for, drug reasons, weed, things like that. Other people just want to be left alone in general. This guy is leading a project that wants to do it for economic reasons, for cryptocurrency reasons. Let's get into it.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Greetings, zeros and ones. Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I am Patrick Smith. Today we have Alex Ugorji. He is an educator, an entrepreneur, and crypto activist. He is a Stanford graduate, and he is the founder of Cryptofrontier, a group trying to bring crypto developers, businesses, and users together to help make crypto mainstream. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am pretty interested in this because, like I said, I've had a lot of people over the years have discussions with me about how they go about achieving freedom by simply getting like-minded people together so that they can exert more influence. Yeah. Now, be that influence, the point of a gun to resist tyranny. If you have more guns pointed, at the bad guys, then you can force more freedom that way. And other people want to work within the political process, like the Free State Project, to sort of, game the system, as it were, to win a little more freedom that way, like the Free State Project. Back when, several years ago, when I was working on Crypto Reaper, which was a product that I made that interfaced with microloan services on crypto exchanges, a lot of people were asking me why can't I purchase crypto anonymously? Because they're not aware of the overregulation and the insane controls that the US government places on trading in and out of fiat currency, in and out of the US dollar. Any bank that allows people to trade in and out of that anonymously and to make profit in exchanges like that anonymously will face severe repercussions from the United States government. And so they were like, well, why can't we just go build an island in the middle of the ocean and, float our server on top of the island and have we could have a headless crypto exchange that just floated in the middle of the ocean and was connected to the world through internet, just through internet to let people have some freedom. And, maybe they could mail their fiat to and from the island or something to exchange their currency. So people default to this idea of, okay, we can't do that here in the US, but where in the world can we do this stuff? And I was pretty pessimistic on the idea, but I'm looking forward to this conversation because I'm hoping that you can convince me that there's hope, that there's a place where we can go for freedom in this area. I guess tell us about your project and what you found.
Yeah, sure. So I think for the history of humanity, people have been clustering together around like-minded individuals, right? You could say the founding of this country, America, was the result of that. A bunch of people who, maybe they were Puritans, maybe they were Quakers, they had some kind of belief that wasn't accepted where they were, and they moved over there. And as the country evolved, the reasons for clustering did too. So we saw clusterings of the automotive industry in Detroit. We see clustering right now of tech people in Silicon Valley. So I think this idea of clustering and being with like-minded individuals working towards a common goal is very powerful to humans and society and has a lot of impact, as we can see from Detroit. And don't forget, there was a time when you could say what's good for Detroit is good for America. And I think Silicon Valley would try to argue the same thing today. Less people might agree than they had in Detroit's peak, but I like to get to a point where we can say, what's good for crypto is what's good for America, and what's good for Saipan is what's good for crypto. So I thought, let's create a crypto cluster. We should do it in America because despite all the disadvantages of America, it is the biggest economy in the world. it has tremendous influence. And if you can prove the concept in America, you can do it elsewhere. So if you have a blockchain voting technology or property registry, if you say, look, I've done it in this American place, it works, it's accepted, the federal government hasn't intervened, then you can take it to any country around the world. So that was my thought process.
Before we go any further, I have to ask this question first, really, on this channel. The question is, how did you become an anarchist?
Yeah. So I think that's a good question, right? And I wouldn't necessarily identify with the anarchist label, but certainly a libertarian, a very strong libertarian. And so I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a very liberal heartland of the US. Elizabeth Warren lived a few miles from my childhood home. But this was back in the day when liberals were those who they believed in free speech and would fight for your right to say, even if they didn't agree. So as I grew up, the internet was developing. I was watching YouTube, and I stumbled across some of the big speakers in the conservative and libertarian community. I saw some Bill Whittle videos, some Larkin Rose videos, some Peter Schiff, and quickly I started to realize, this makes a lot of sense. And I just kept going deeper and deeper, and eventually I got to the logical conclusion that everyone owns their self, and you shouldn't aggress against others unless you're defending yourself. And in that case, it's not even aggression. So it's that was my origin story of sorts, just radicalized on the internet, as the mainstream media would like to say, right?
Now, did you find crypto before this transition, before these discoveries, or was it the other way around?
I stumbled upon crypto probably early 2010s. I just read about you can print money on your computer, and I downloaded the miner. I was doing mining, and at that time Bitcoin was worth just in the cents. So I was I thought I was going to be get rich quick, just printing money. This is great. And then after a couple of weeks, I realized this isn't doing it, and I just deleted it. So that was my first interaction, and who knows how many tens of thousands of dollars were lost. Everyone has those stories of back when Bitcoin was worthless, they just threw them out. But when I got into college was probably when I really started to get active. Freshman year in college, I was the Bitcoin Dogecoin guy. On our free and for sale group in the college, I would just post I take Bitcoin, I take Doge, I'll buy Bitcoin, I'll buy Doge. And I started trading it as well on Reddit, r/Doge market. I was a big Doge guy. I thought, the memes were just so good, so delicious that how could it not take over? And so so my roommates and I, we set up a miner. I went to undergrad in Middlebury in Vermont. So we had nice cold air to cool the miner. And we ended up just leaving the window open for the whole winter because the miner was just producing so much heat. So that was really when I got my start, and it was a lot of fun. Met some great people at the college who were into crypto, and ever since then I knew there was a ton of potential.
Interesting. So that was before then you found out about sort of Larkin Rose's videos and all that stuff that you were talking about. That came first?
Yeah, first I saw the videos, and then later on, maybe 6 months, a year later. So it's basically I got into college. I had a lot of free time. I was just on the internet, learning everything I could. School may have ended, but learning never ends. So I was just watching all these videos, and one thing leads to another. So yeah.
I find way more schooling happens outside of school. So I have pulled up the location in the world, I guess, that you have selected as what you think should be the focal point for your project. Can you tell us where that is and tell us about it and why you chose it?
Yeah, so I'm in the U.S. Mariana Islands. It's an overseas territory of America that joined in, I believe, the 80s. It officially joined. And it's right next to Guam. So no one's heard of Saipan or the U.S. Mariana Islands, but a fair number of people have heard of Guam because of the military presence. So that's the area it's in. It's about 5 hours. And while it seems like it's in the middle of nowhere, right? Looking at the picture on the map, it seems very far, But actually, I think its location is great. It's 5 hours from some of the biggest cities in the world. Hong Kong, Seoul, Tokyo, Manila, all of them are about 5 hours away by plane. So although it's somewhat far in terms of driving distance, right? You're not driving to Tokyo from an island. But in terms of flight time, right, you're in Dallas area. How far away are you from a metro that's over 10 million? Right, you're very far. You're further than me, arguably. So from that perspective, I think it's very close to the mega cities. But the real appeal of it is that it's autonomy, right? Many people don't know, but U.S. territories like the Mariana Islands, they are exempt from IRS taxation. The IRS has no authority over Saipan-sourced income. So that's huge in the crypto space, because one of the biggest problems that crypto faces is every time you buy something with crypto, it's a taxable event. Mm-hmm. So there's no way crypto can take off as long as that's the case, because anyone using crypto is non-compliant. And you can't have an industry take off with that level of non-compliance. But Saipan is the type of place where the government's accessible, right? The governor's elected with fewer than 10,000 people, senators as few as 500. So in my few months I've been living here, I've been able to present to the Senate, talk with the House Ways and Means Committee, talk with the Senate finance guys, just extremely accessible, and explain to them this is their opportunity to be at the center of a multi-billion-dollar industry. And they're very intrigued and very interested in exploring it further. So I realized with the existing low tax rates, the tax rates right now are at most half of what they are in a no-income state like Texas. So the highest income tax bracket here is 18.5%. But the average person is paying probably 10% or below. And remember, this is not going to the IRS, right? You're not funding any wars. You're not funding the DEA. You're not funding FinCEN. So it's really nice that your tax rates are both lower and you're giving it to a much better organization than the U.S. federal government.
So what do they exist as in relation to the U.S. government? It's not a state, right? What is it?
Yeah, it's a territory. So okay. There's 5 territories in the U.S. People know Puerto Rico and Guam usually, but there's also the Virgin Islands, the Mariana Islands, and D.C. So there's quite a few territories out there. The advantage of the U.S. Mariana Islands over the rest of them is that it's actually a nice place to live, right? A lot of people are talking about Puerto Rico tax advantages and all of that. Many of the tax advantages that exist in Puerto Rico already existed in Saipan. There was the talk of the 4% corporate tax rate and then 0% dividends. Saipan's had a similar scheme for decades. Our income tax rates are far lower than Puerto Rico. Our capital gains tax rates are very low as well. So from a tax perspective, we're very nice. And then we're also a tropical island paradise with legal weed, great scubaing and hiking and outdoor activities. So the quality of life is much better, where in Puerto Rico, it's, some areas are overcrowded. There's some problem with crime. There's the language barrier. Many people aren't fluent in Spanish, where here it's all English. It's low population density. Everything's very relaxed and enjoyable. Your kids can play outside. You don't have to worry. So the quality of life, I think, is much better than the alternatives proposed in places like Puerto Rico.
Okay, so businesses located there, well, I guess I should say exchanges located there would not be exempted from KYC laws and things like that, right? That would still be an issue?
Yeah, the federal laws would still apply unless you want to get into nullification, right? I've started talking to the government about how other places have used nullification and how it's a very powerful concept. But I think it's unlikely that, tomorrow they're just going to say, we're going to nullify KYC, right? You can make an argument. We have a $1 billion Chinese casino here, and something tells me they're not 100% compliant with KYC, but it's like, until we get a $1 billion exchange, I think we'll have to comply with KYC for sure. And even then, it's likely that they'll want to maintain a good relationship with the federal government.
Yeah, I think it would be the other way around. The bigger your exchange got and the more of the world's commerce was done there outside of the US's KYC control, the more heat they would bring on that little place, which I guess would be my challenge to you, right? So even when I'm talking to my friends about making a little, non-jurisdictional, in the middle of the ocean floating island with some exchange servers on it, even if we use some of the profit from our illicit exchange, otherwise known as free, it would not be left alone for long. The government would brand it as, the same negative connotations that they gave, Swiss bank accounts, and ways that it would be like, it would be a tax shelter. It would be where criminals go to exchange money outside of the jurisdiction of the U.S. banking establishment. And, eventually, if it kept up enough, they might just sink your little island. It's not like the U.S. government's
Exactly.
adverse to a little
totally
bombing.
With what you're saying, and that the U.S. government will not allow any other country to be the Bank of Iran and North Korea and all of the other accusations. Probably they'll throw in some Nazi language as well. But we are the U.S., right? We are protected by U.S. law, and thus we can't be shut down the same way that foreign banks can't. We can't be sanctioned the same way that foreign banks can't. So, and I would argue that the premise of your argument is wrong. We don't want centralized exchanges. Anytime you have a central party, it's going to be vulnerable. We want a decentralized exchange, a place where you can just do a peer-to-peer transaction. And if you want to do $1 million into Bitcoin, there'll be people here, you can just do $1 million into Bitcoin over the counter. There's no exchange, there's no anything. And so I think that's the most realistic approach, because the US government is not going to allow any country to not have KYC. We've seen what they've done with FATCA. You can't have they're forcing other countries to declare if they have Americans in their banks. That's like Saudi Arabia telling you alcohol is illegal in our country. If any Saudi goes to your supermarket in your country, you can't sell them alcohol, right? The US government is not just going to let anyone ignore KYC laws. They're going to use their boogeyman terrorism and drug war and whatever else is trendy. The children, you can't forget the children. So given all those factors, I think we're safer. We need to be under the umbrella. Anyone who wants to do anything big, you need the protection in one of the big organizations, whether it's China, Russia, or US, I would say, if you're centralized, right? If you have a decentralized movement, then you can operate anywhere. But if you want to do something centralized and really advance the industry, advance the technology, we want the protection of the US, and we want the US advancing crypto overseas. If the US, it's the same way they do for Google and Facebook and all of them, right? If they see this as a $1 billion US company, they're going to be pushing other countries, say, you should be taking crypto, you should be doing this. So I'm sort of flipping the traditional way of looking at it and saying, actually, we want the US government's protection. We want them aiding us as opposed to being against us, right? We can choose. They can be against us or they can be with us. It's a powerful force. It's better they're with us. And the real enemy, in my opinion, is the IRS, right? The US government is not really stopping crypto. It's the IRS that's the real bottleneck that's really putting pressure on people. And we're exempt from the IRS. So that would be my counter argument.
Interesting. So rather than form your own mafia or join a competing mafia, you're just going to pay off this one and hope that because they're the biggest and scariest that they'll help you instead of take too much of a piece.
Yeah, we're going to pay our protection money, and they're going to help advance our interests. So it's a terrible situation. Don't get me wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Why do we have to worry about any of this? Mm-hmm. Two people want to have an interaction. Why is it anyone else's business? It shouldn't be a problem. But I consider myself a very pragmatic libertarian, right? I want to abolish anything that's against the non-aggression principle. But I understand to get there, we're going to have to make compromises. And the question is, what's the next step, right? This isn't the end goal. My end goal isn't, let's live under the U.S. umbrella for eternity. That's a great thing. No, on the opposite, it's how do we get there? How do we break free, right? Crypto seems to be one of the most powerful technologies we have in terms of advancing freedom, advancing economic activity, and just advancing human quality of life overall. So my thought is, how do we advance this space, this activity? And we can use the US, we can use the legal system, we can use all of that to advance it and say, we've proved blockchain can advance the world. It can register property more efficiently. It can do voting more efficiently. How can the Russians hack the election? If it's on the blockchain, it's transparent, we can audit it. So we demonstrate, this is the only place in the US the Russians provably didn't hack. You should advance this system in your country elsewhere. So I want to take the existing system and turn it against itself, similar to the way that Cody Wilson, right? He got the State Department and the state attorney generals are now fighting each other. And I think we can use similar tactics here and use the different branches of government and levels against each other. Because what can we do? Like the federal government gave us our autonomy. They gave us our IRS exemption. They signed all these treaties, and there's 100 years plus of precedent for all of these things, and it'd be very hard for them to overturn it. Whereas they can easily sanction a foreign bank because they're using crypto to launder money for Iran and North Korea.
So in a way, and I know that you're nothing like the Free State Project and your goals are nothing like it, but in a way it's like as if a lot of the Free State type work has already been done for you economically in this area, so you're just trying to step in and then start capitalizing on it. I guess you said this is the next pragmatic step. Can you describe, what is the next step? What are you trying to put together there? What have you done so far?
Yeah, sure. So in regards to the Free State Project, we're very clear that we're not a political organization, right? We're an economic organization. We're trying to bring together successful people who want to build things, people who want to, advance prosperity in the Saipan and the US in general. And we want to build stuff and lead by example. And I think that's the best way. And that's the American way, right? America is the shining example for the rest of the world of what you can do with the free country. All the advances came out of America for a reason. It's because we had the freedom, we had the ability to interact and just create. And we wanted to have the project be in that vein. We're attracting creators and builders. I think the mistake the Free State Project made is they made it political. So it's about politics, right? Politics is not going to solve issues. Building things does. Advancing technology, advancing prosperity. When you have more prosperity, that's how you have the time, the resources to solve problems. So that's our focus. As for what we're doing and what we've done, we've started getting businesses accepting crypto. Before we came here, there were no businesses accepting crypto. Now we're approaching about half a dozen businesses accepting crypto. Maybe we're averaging one a month. And that's with just a few people here. And we're also recruiting more and more people. As you can see on our team page on cryptofrontier.org/team, Mark Edge from Free Talk Live, arguably the biggest libertarian radio show in the world. He's moved over here. He's relocating his family. He believes that this is the future of economic prosperity. Vin Armani has recently moved over as well. He's a crypto savage, entrepreneur, developer, and great guy.
When you say moved over, do you mean they're living there?
Yeah, they moved over.
Wow.
Vin Armani, he'll be on Free Talk Live on Friday, which is now hosted one day a week from the US Mariana Islands. Because they're on board. So he'll be on Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to call in and ask him, why did he join the U.S. Mariana Islands? What does he see here? Why did he move his family over in the middle of a pandemic? Get on the plane, put on his mask, and come over here. So I think there's a lot of momentum. It's picking up steam, and there's a lot that can be done here in terms of reforming. That's largely what we're looking for, is to reform the tax code to make crypto easy to use, to make it easy for consumers and businesses to be compliant. No more of this. Every time you buy a pack of gum, you have to report capital gains. Crypto can never take off if that's the case, and we can get rid of that here. So that's one of the main things we're working on at the moment.
There's a blog article on your cryptofrontier.org site, and I mean, I like a lot of the things that you're saying in here. One of the things is like, you know, what we're trying to do, like you just said, is we're trying to get rid of the barriers to entry, the barriers to usage to cryptocurrency, and these are very real barriers. Like, as long as we're not anonymous, and that's not a benefit, like that's not something that we can have. We can't have anonymity when we use PayPal, for example. So if my mom wants to send me some money, she's going to use PayPal and it's not going to be anonymous. And with most cryptocurrencies, they're not really anonymous unless you take extraordinary steps to make it so. And so you have this sort of layman problem where, like, if my mom is going to, has to choose between PayPaling me, which she knows how to do from her phone, you know, pretty straightforward. It's not difficult. It's going to be difficult to convince the layman to change over to this other thing that offers no real benefit over PayPal in terms of anonymity or any of the metrics that are serviceable to an average person, let's say. Like, maybe I care as an activist about anonymity. I care about having full control over my money, not being able to have my bank accounts frozen, not being able to have, you know, somebody else come in and sort of manipulate my currency by political fiat. But the layman is not going to care as much about that stuff. And so it's all about making the technology compete with the ease of use and the simplicity and the obviousness of something like PayPal, for example. And so it's cool to see a group trying to do this. And what I like about this blog article that you have here is, you know, you call it the implementation impasse. Why don't you talk about that for a minute? But one of my favorite things that I think you said is like, okay, we're talking about the implementation impasse. There's things in the way, but what we actually mean is, okay, it's government. So yeah. Can you talk about the implementation impasse?
Yeah, sure. So I think the technology is far ahead of where we are in the real world, right? We can already vote on the blockchain. We can already have property register on the blockchain, notaries. I mean, most technologies and industries could be on the blockchain in some way, but it's always the government holding us back. If you want to put property on the blockchain, well, you have to unseat the current monopoly registrar of property, your local town office. And that's the real problem. And there needs to be some place that you can use as the example when you take to the next town and say, look, this whole entire territory in the US put their property registry system on. Here's the data. Here's how much money they've saved as a result. Here are the benefits. It's much more transparent. It's much more ethical, and it's much easier. It saves more resources. And especially in this time of Corona, we can really push the argument that there's no money. All the local governments are broke. Why are you wasting money on paperwork when you could be hiring teachers or, you know, whatever thing they think is really important? You just frame it in whatever they want, right? As a common negotiation and pitch tactic, right? If they want teachers, you give them teachers. If they want police, you give them police. And I know there's probably people who are rolling their eyes right now. You know, don't say they can use the money to fund police, but, you know, do you want to progress or not? Right? If we have property on the blockchain, we're one step closer. There's one less industry that they have a monopoly over. There's more people who are free, more transparency. So that's my thought process, is that the technology is ready, but there's this implementation impasse because the government's like, we don't want to use it, or it's new, or I don't know, like this and that, whatever excuse they come up with. If there was some place in America that can show, we've done this, it's working, you should do it too, then it could spread much more quickly. So it's the proof of concept, really. That's essentially what we are. We're the proof of concept for the whole world, is that if this American territory can implement crypto in all these different spheres and blockchain and, you know, X percentage their commercial activities in crypto, then other places can say, hey, we can do it too. And the reason why the Mariana Islands are more suitable than other places, beyond the autonomy and beyond the taxes is that you want to be a big industry. You can't go to the governor if your industry is 0.001% of the economy. And I don't care if you're Coinbase in California, you're a fly, right? You're a little pimple on the face of California. They're not concerned about you. PayPal, they're 10 times as big as you. Then there's Stripe and dozens of other payment processors. So even in your niche, you're just a little player in any other place but Saipan, where, you have a $10, $50 million company. You're now one of the top companies there. The government's going to listen to you. They're going to say, what do you need? We want to diversify away from tourism. This tourism is getting crushed right now. We need new industries. And we want to be the new industry, ready to build everything, improve quality of life, and show, this technology is making things better. Let's spread it. And I think that's a much more compelling argument than what you're doing is unethical. You should do what I'm saying. It's more ethical. They've tried that. Look at the Free State Project or elsewhere. Unfortunately, most people don't make decisions based on ethics. They make it based on convenience. So we want to make it convenient and beneficial for the local government here, and then use them as the example and say, hey, look at how much money they saved, how much time, how happy everyone is with the new system. You should try it too if you want to be competitive, or we're going to take all your businesses. They're going to move here. So that's my approach.
What is the tax environment like there? You said the IRS doesn't have jurisdiction. How do they tax and how does that work there?
Yeah, so all the US territories, they're exempt from IRS taxation. And I believe the reason has to do with taxation without representation, right? We cannot vote. As a Saipan resident now, I cannot vote for president. We have one House member who's a non-voting House member, like a little token, seat over there. So we don't have any representation at the federal level. And I think that's why we have no taxation. And we instead have our own IRS equivalent. And so the way it's currently set up is we mirror the IRS code, but we provide additional rebates. So we're like a no income tax state to begin with, like Texas, and then we provide a rebate. So if you're making $0 to $20,000, you get a 90% rebate. So you get back 90%. You're only paying 10% of what you'd pay if you were in a no income tax state like Texas. 20 to 100,000 is 70% rebate, and 100,000 plus is 50%. So the average American is going to be getting a rebate of over 70%, maybe like 75% of what they would get in a no income state like Texas. So that's huge tax savings for the average person. In addition, the corporate tax is different here. We don't have a profit tax, we have a revenue tax, which has positives and negatives. The positive is if, like most people nowadays, you're in the service industry, you're probably high margin, right? You're producing podcast or consulting or that kind of stuff. Your margins are generally high. So a revenue tax is very, very low. However, if you're in a very low margin industry, like a gas station, then it's not as competitive here because the revenue tax might be higher than a profit tax equivalent. So for the right industries, and that's very important to stress, Saipan and the US Mariana Islands are not going to be for everyone, right? There's advantages and disadvantages here. Some companies will benefit greatly from being here, some will not. Same thing for individuals. If you need to have like 100 types of restaurants and cycle through different one every single day, you need your Starbucks, you need the latest vegan trendy drink, this is probably not the place for you, right? But if you're more focused on enjoying nature, building things, and just having a life where no one's bothering you, this is the place, right? You can have a blacked out window tint. My car is blacked out. That's not legal anywhere in the US because someone could pull a gun on us when we pull them over, the police would say. So they lobby to get rid of it. Here, no one's worried about that, right? The drivers aren't worried about the police being behind them. They're not going to pull you over for no reason. And I think I was talking to Vin about this the other day. Our theory is that everyone here knows that the police are just guys in costumes, right? All the bureaucrats are just guys in costumes because it's their cousin. It's their like friend of a friend, right? Because it's a small island. Everyone knows everyone. So it's like, when they walk in, puff out their chest, officer, whatever, it's like, okay, like it's, don't joke. Like you were at my like barbecue the other week. Like, so it's a much more relaxed environment where you don't worry about breaking rules. Like the UN did a survey on marijuana usage, and the Mariana Islands was number 2 in the world after Jamaica in like illicit marijuana use. And it's just like not a big deal here because it's like no one's being hurt. And same thing, like prostitution laws aren't enforced, like many gambling laws aren't enforced. It's very much a live and let live place. I mean, I went to a neighboring island, Tinian. My boarding pass was a seashell, a laminated seashell. You can see a picture on my Instagram. Alex Ugorji is my Instagram. You can try to find me there. I have a picture of it. It's like a laminated seashell. And there's no TSA. You can use your cell phone the whole time. You can bring whatever you want. I talk to guys, they just bring their gun, they throw it in the back of the plane, bring their gun, and just, there's no like metal detector, no anything. So it's a totally different mindset where people they don't look at you like you're a criminal, right? The police in most of America, they see it's like, the thin blue line. It's like, there's us and the criminals, and we got to make sure everyone is properly sorted. Here, it's just like, everyone's just like your extended family or your extended family's friends, or it's just not that same environment where people are stressing out. So when you have police interactions here, it's no big deal. No one's going to get shot. No one's trying to prove they're dominant or any of that. You just talk with them and just say, oh yeah, like, I didn't know you can't do this. Like, they're like, oh, don't worry, just don't do it again. And that's that. No tickets, no arrests, no anything. So that's those type of things appeal to you, and it's your kind of place. But if you are a big urbanite, then I would definitely say it's not the place for you.
Interesting. So what's the downside? So, like a good dichotomous example would be Texas and California. So if you are interested or concerned with a certain subset of liberties, you would go to California, where you could be more free in terms of drug use and things like that. And if you're concerned with guns and other types of liberty, you'll come to Texas and be more comfortable. So it's like there's this, up and down on the different categories of freedom because nobody seems to have it all. What would be the negative category for that place? Is there one?
Yeah, I would say the biggest negative would be it's like slower, less developed than the average place in America. So you can make the argument that like liberty is like technology, infrastructure, all of that, like being able to ship parts, same day shipping is freedom in a way, right? That allows for a lot more development, quality of life, all those type of things. So I'd say the biggest downsides here is that Amazon, there's no 2-day shipping for Amazon. That's one of the biggest things. The second biggest thing I would say is that actually the average person can't buy land. So there's really weird land laws here. And I don't think they're legal, but you know how the Ninth Circuit is with their interpretations of the Constitution. So essentially Article 12 of the Constitution here says only people of Northern Mariana Island descent can own land, except for condos. Any condo that's not like ground floor. If it's ground floor, then it's the land, so you can't own it. But if it's above the ground floor, then it can be owned by anyone in the world. Okay. So only the Northern Mariana descent people can own land. And I don't think that's American law. I don't think that's a constitutional law. But they were able to push it through the courts, just how they push a lot of things through the courts. And I'd say that's a big downside for some who, if you can't own your land, then you're not free, right? That's probably the biggest downside. The counter argument to that is that because of that, everything's cheaper here than it should be. This is similar to Hawaii in many ways, but you're not paying the Hawaii prices because you can't have like Zuckerberg buying half the island. You can't even buy any piece of land on the island. No foreign nationals can buy anything on the island. You can only lease for 55 years. And for most people, that should be enough. And there's always the possibility of repeal, which they're discussing more and more lately due to the economic downturns. But that is certainly a disadvantage, no question about it. You can live in a condo that's on the ground floor and own it outright, but you can't own your farm here. In terms of upsides, I would say there is legal weed. You can have an AR-15, although only 10-round magazines. But I think most people should be able to reload pretty quickly. The tax freedom is very high. The privacy freedom, we don't have street addresses here. My driver's license is a PO box. Where all the real IDs and stuff, they have to say where you live, how tall you are, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty invasive. Here, it's a PO box, and that's pretty mind blowing for me, at least. Usually the government is so anal about wanting to know where do you live. When you change your address, you're supposed to update your license, all that kind of stuff. Here, I changed my PO box, and I asked them what do I do? They're like, just when it expires, you can update your PO box. So there's a lot of privacy freedoms here as well. So I've done a report on all the status of freedom overall that people can take a look at marianasolutions.com/liberty. If they want to know everything about freedom, all of the laws, the constitutional setup. We're not allowed to borrow debt here, which is, I would say, a big freedom, where all around the country right now, everyone's borrowing billions and billions of dollars. The U.S. Mariana Islands can't borrow even a cent for operating expenses.
The governments can't borrow. People can, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good, important clarification. So I would say the state of freedom is pretty good. Most people will be happy. You can have your AR-15 and you can smoke your weed at the same time. Obviously, there's the federal restrictions against that, but those apply in Colorado or anywhere else that weed is legal. So does that answer your question on the freedom upsides and downsides?
Yeah, it does. So is there anything else that you'd like people to know about your project and what you have going on, and where can people go to find more about it? I think we've already mentioned your website a couple times, but if there's anything else, let us know.
Yeah, I think whether it's this project or some other project or whatever, I'd say that it's really important that people lead by example and focus on building things. I think the best way to change things is by showing a counterexample, one that says, this is better, this is how you should do things, and things will change naturally as a result. In addition, I would also tell people to look around, look at the state of the world, and realize that there's not much time left. So whatever your passion or interest is, it's time to get moving, time to get active, because the government is cracking down. Freedom has never been more of a threat. Industries all around the world, they might not exist if the governments can have their way. So I'd say, it's time to get active, start doing things, whatever your interest is, whatever your hobby. If you think crypto is the future, you want to build some cool crypto things, you're welcome to talk to me more. You can reach out to me, Instagram, Alex Ugorji, cryptofrontier.org. We have a contact form, and there's an invite-only Telegram group you can apply to join. Monthly newsletter there as well. And marianasolutions.com is where I blog about what Saipan is like as an expat of sorts, even though technically it's in America. And lastly, Free Talk Live every Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time is broadcasted from the U.S. Mariana Islands. So if you have questions, you can call in and ask us then on air.
All right. Thank you so much. That's good advice for any kind of activism at this point. Like people, we talked about this yesterday on my show where we interviewed Murdoch Pescati, who was showing up to deal with the lady they're persecuting over opening her salon against judges' La Rona orders. And today she was, I think,
you person out there listening to this, right? You might think you can make a difference, but single people have overturned laws. I know a guy here, Paul Murphy, he overturned the gun laws. They try to pass like a California style ban everything law. He's a former Army Ranger. The lawyers here didn't want to represent him because, they lean left. They come from like California mostly. And so he said, I'm just going to represent myself. He had no legal training. He just did his research, presented, and overturned the entire gun law in the Mariana Islands. That's just one guy. And there's dozens of more examples, whether it's Cody Wilson or dozens of others who they just do stuff and the world changes. And you can be one of those people, or you can help the other people who you think are doing a good job with whatever their activity is. So I would just say, with this Corona craziness, everyone needs to really step it up now, because, the other side is stepping it up. And if we don't want to be locked down forever, it's time to start getting active, time to start helping out.
A great saying, I don't know where it came from, but it's been going around lately, is you are the person you've been waiting for. Stand up, start doing it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for somebody else to fight for you. Do it yourself. It's time. All right, sir. Thank you, Alex. It's been a really pleasurable interview. I hope to talk to you again in the future. Let us know if anything, cool develops with your project. And thanks for coming on the show. I had a great time.
Will do. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. Until next time, folks. Peace, love, and anarchy.